What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JAR. JAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. And we're here this week to talk about another story from Kaladesh. You can see some Kaladesh pre-release kits back here. You do not see booster boxes or bundles yet. I almost said fat packs, bundles. We will talk about that more at the end, but for now, let's just get right into the review. We are here to talk about Bottled Up, which is this week's story. Of the main characters, we get to see Nissa, we get to see Chandra, we get to see Ovia Pashiri, or Mrs. Pashiri, as they just keep calling her, which is fine. We get to see Baral as well, which I was super excited about. What a bastard. And they did such a good job of showing him as just a straight-up villain. And we had asked the question in previous jars, if you're a long-time viewer of JAR, you'll know. I had asked the question, at least, how were they...
Fix it.
What? What did you say?
I said if you're not, fix it.
Yeah, exactly. You should definitely go check them out. Well, actually, they'll probably be linked up top. But anyway, if you go back and you watch those other jars, or if you did watch those other jars, you know that I asked that how are they going to make another villain in this set be anything close to the Eldrazi? Well, you make them a heartless bastard. Because, at least with the Eldrazi, they had no motivation. They just, or not no motivation, but no personality. They just were hungry, or crazy, or whatever. They didn't attack you mentally. You know what I mean? Or at least, that's still not correct, because Kozilek did, but regardless... Well, and so did Emrakul.
I was like, Emrakul.
Yeah. No.
Did a number on people's psyches.
Right. I mean that they didn't berate you. Let's put it that way. They didn't berate you verbally like this guy did. Cut you to the core, or do anything really strategically. There was nothing strategic done except for technically, I guess, Emrakul trapping herself in the moon, which we don't really know the full purpose behind that yet, but I'm sure we'll get there someday.
You'll find out.
Yes. Long from now. Let's not even consider getting anywhere near that. But I actually, and I think from talking to you about it, I gauge that I loved this story more so than you did.
Absolutely.
I thought this was amazing. I was like, when the story was done, I was like freaking out. It was so good.
I liked it. It was good. It was great. It was great.
To me, it just brought together so much of what we were talking about previously. We were talking about Nissa, and how when we led into Kaladesh with the Gatewatch on Ravnica, Nissa was talking about how she didn't feel connected to Ravnica. She felt uncomfortable on Ravnica because it was a city full of people, and she's not comfortable being with and among people. She doesn't like all that. She likes nature. As we find out more in this story, or she talks about more in this story, she is better off with nature. She considers her best friend to be Ashaya, which is basically just Zendikar, and doesn't really consider that she has any other friends.
Yeah.
At all. Zendikar is her only friend.
She's like, wait, friends?
Right, and she considers what she ever did even leaving Zendikar in the first place, and kind of we get that reflective moment by her, and later on by Chandra as well, of why she joined the Gatewatch, which I think melded seamlessly into this story. It wasn't forced where it was like, I'm walking down the street and I'm wondering why I'm in the Gatewatch. It was perfectly fitted for this plane, for Nissa, and I guess it kind of blindsided me personally, because I was ready for Chandra's story to be the one that is getting so kind of covered, right, in this set, because it's Kaladesh, and that makes sense. Now, obviously, of the Gatewatch, Nissa and Chandra are both Planeswalkers in this set, and so the fact that this entire story was told from Nissa's perspective was great, because you still got to hear about Chandra. Nissa was with Chandra the whole time, so you got to hear about Nissa's opinions about what Chandra was going through, and Chandra wore her heart on her sleeve, so you didn't really have to be like, I wonder what Chandra's thinking right now. She just told you and threw fire at things and whatever, which is great. Don't get me wrong. It worked out super well. But it came together so well. You know, I've talked about it in previous jars, and I hope that I'm not the only one. I hope that it's pretty obvious to everybody, so that I'm not, you know, I don't want to be talking above everybody and being like, I noticed this and no one else did. But the whole thing with Nyssa, you know, I was ready for her to leave a plane that she wasn't really comfortable with Ravnica, and go to another plane that is very similar to it. And the only reason that she was going was for Chandra.
Yeah.
And it was because she felt responsible to Chandra. Chandra needed her help and came to her for help.
Yeah.
And
she felt she caused the anxiety that Chandra had in leaving her room, I guess.
Yes.
Without actually help from Nyssa.
Yes.
And she just kind of stormed out in a sort of frantic, I don't know what.
Yeah. No, she was nuts. She was going crazy.
And Nyssa really felt responsible for that.
Yes. And you see a lot of that in this story where, I mean, Chandra is flying completely off the handle. She's like, we have to find my mom. Where's my mom? She's captured.
It's understandable.
Absolutely. But I thought it was great, though. I think it worked out really well. And again, really as a continuation of that part of the story with Nyssa and Chandra's relationship to one another, and the reason behind Nyssa coming to Kaladesh, because you got to see it continue. You got to see Nyssa saying to Chandra, hey, why don't you take a breath? And Chandra's like, I can't take a breath right now. I'm just so freaking out. And Nyssa's like, just try it.
This is really important.
Yeah. And she's like, my mom's missing. Don't you get it? And Nyssa's like, just take a breath. Try it. Feel the plane. Feel the energy flowing through you. And I don't think it's a mistake that shortly after that, Chandra was able to say, wait a minute. What about the pipelines? They need pipelines. You know, Nyssa was trying to lead Chandra through the underground, and Ovia Pashiri was doing the same thing of trying to lead them through the underground, and yet and Chandra was just running, like she was just going and angry and fiery fists.
She knows her mom is in there, maybe getting tortured,
maybe already dead, which is what
so
Chandra's own words. The sooner you
get to her, the better off she might be.
Right,
you know?
and so yes, so completely understandably, yes, I get that, but at the same time, they didn't know where they were going.
Right.
You know, and yet it was Chandra's idea about the pipelines, and Nyssa was like, oh, right, of course, pipelines. Right. And so she focused a little bit better on, okay, let me try to focus on the pipelines then. And
but they alluded to that too, where Nyssa was it Nyssa that said it? Or maybe it was Chandra, where they were like, people in the Gatewatch have strengths and weaknesses, and they play off each other. Yes. And so that kind of goes back to that fact where Chandra couldn't calm down at that moment because she was in such a frenzy over just all of a sudden knowing her mom after all these years is actually still alive,
right, and
now being carted off to the worst prison ever to probably get tortured and maybe die.
Right.
So, you know, they're rightfully upset.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she couldn't calm down, so then Nyssa kind of did it for her. And then Mrs. Pashiri was like, oh, my partner, you know, stuff about her partner. Kind of like stating that the two of them work cohesively very well together.
Yeah, and I mean, the end of this story was actually genuinely heartbreaking for me. I loved it, don't get me wrong, but it was so emotional, and it was so awesome. Like, if you, after reading that whole thing, and the whole idea of Nyssa being like, I don't know that I have friends, and I'm not, and seeing Mrs. Pashiri touching Chandra's back, and she's like, I'm not comfortable touching people. You know, like, Nyssa's like, I don't like all that, and Chandra, like, seemingly slightly positively responding to Mrs. Pashiri's touch, and so at the end or towards the end, Nyssa does the same thing of trying to relax Chandra by placing her hand in the same spot Mrs. Bashiri did, in the same way, and just saying, like, okay, let's work together, like, consolidate your flame, don't spread it out, because we're trapped now in the Deadlock Trap, which is, again, the story spotlight card that we saw.
Art.
Oh, it was so cool. It was so cool. And
I've seen it before, but it bears repeating again.
Yeah, and I was saying...
It's just so good.
I was saying I got to use it during pre-release, and in Limited, that card's amazing. I loved it. You know, in a deck that produces energy. Using it only twice seems a little bad, but regardless, we're not really here to analyze cards.
I care about the art, and it's kick-ass.
I also care about the art, and it is kick-ass. I'm just saying. I got to use it during pre-release, and I was happy because, you know, the Vorthos in me was like, eh. But yeah, the Deadlock Trap was the only story spotlight shown here, which is, again, totally fine. We've got, I believe, we've got 2 more left. We've got Fateful Showdown, and we've got Confiscation Coup. Because we already saw Inventor's Fair.
That one, but I didn't remember the first one.
Captured by the Consulate. Inventor's Fair, Captured by the Consulate, and this one, Deadlock Trap, were the first 3. So we've got 2 more left. And so, yeah, we're 3/5 of the way there, which is great. It was, this story, and I don't want to say suffered from it because I totally understand, and I think they did an amazing job leading up to this, but this story was the first one in Kaladesh, at least, where it was like, oh, well, we know what's going to happen because the story spotlight card showed us. So P is definitely not dead because she has to be in the Fateful Showdown with Tezzeret. We know that. Again.
The Fateful Showdown.
Nice. Nicely done. I
hate that song so much.
She really does. I love it, though, so...
I think everyone loves that song. I really just only hate that song because my dad used to sing it all the time when I was younger. So it just got to a point where it's like, if I ever hear that song again. And
then we got together and I sing it all the time and she loves it.
Yeah.
She doesn't love it. Okay. So we know that Pia is alive because she has to be in the Fateful Showdown. We know that Chandra and Nyssa survive this Deadlock Trap because we at least know that to some degree it's likely that Ajani is the one who saves them, which also means super psyched. I really hope next week we get to see Ajani because I love me some Ajani.
Oh God!
I'd love to see the follow up from Theros and what his interactions with the rest of the Gatewatch will be, because we do see him together with all of them.
Gideon?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
Let us know in the comments down below. I don't know all of the past interactions between Ajani and any of the other Gatewatch people. I know he saves them because that's in impeccable timing. It says that, and then so we'll see how that works. I'm looking forward to finding all that out and learning all that and seeing those interactions. It was so good. It worked out so well with everything coming together, even in just this story. I mean, the story ended with Nyssa finally saying, I should go. I should leave here and go get help or go do whatever, and I should just go, but I want to stay. I'm dying of poison in this Deadlock Trap with Chandra and this old woman, Mrs. Bashiri, but I want to stay. Yeah. Because Chandra is my friend, is my newly found friend, or, my newly discovered that she is my friend. She just,
in that moment, had the revelation that, if she stayed there, she would die with someone who
she
maybe loved her nearly as much as Ashaya did.
It was, oh my God. It was just so good. Like, honestly, guys, if you, let me know whether you're in my camp where you thought it was amazing or whether you're in Amy's camp where you're like, it was good, but, Jesus, Joe.
It was really good.
Calm down.
I think you have a point.
Okay.
That maybe I don't have enough appreciation for the effortlessness of it.
Okay.
Like, the fact that it was so effortless, made it feel easy.
Well, and I'll say, I'll give a fair warning in this review. I can see, I am not this guy, but I can see how people could find some of the friendship discussion to be corny.
Yeah.
I can see that.
It was very sort of prepubescent sort of thing.
I mean, like, very, like...
Like, oh, yeah, I remember, like, thinking that when I was in middle school about, you know, like...
Finding yourself and everything. But because we're learning about these characters, and especially Chandra is growing among the Gatewatch, and we talked about it, you know, mentally she's a lot younger than what she actually is age-wise.
And there's really something to be said about the fact that all of these people had very traumatic instances in their lives, and that's why they're planeswalkers. And so there's something to be said about just the sort of hampering of their development emotionally.
Right. Well, and Chandra says it, right? Nissa, why'd you join the Gatewatch? And, you know, it wasn't to save the world, it was to not be alone. You know, planeswalkers in and of themselves just are loners because they can't get attached to people because they are drawn to leave all the time. So they always want to go away, and when they go away, they don't necessarily keep those friendships, or they can't bring those people with them.
Right.
So, you know, what's the point of joining the Gatewatch? Well, being with other people like yourself, being part of something bigger than yourself, you know, and that was great, and that was kind of what even made Nissa opened up and talked about her own past. Now, it was in response to Chandra being a little bit of a jerk, and really just, again, it was really just her flying off the handle and not fully understanding what she was saying.
You know, Chandra's personality, she just is impulsive. And
right. She just says things, and later apologized for it, but it was, you know, she said, like...
But also, like, Nissa... In the fact that she lives with her, basically, and, you know, is with her all the time, Nissa understands that, especially since they had that connection and everything else with the meditation and whatever, and she could kind of know her thoughts and whatever it all was. Yeah,
and, you know, it was funny, towards the end when they were locked in the Deadlock Trap from Baral, you know, I'm going to put my hand on your back, I'm going to channel my energy into you. I can draw magic from outside, but I can't project it from in here, but I can draw it in from out there. I thought that was really cool, and then I thought, you know, Nissa putting her hand on Chandra's back and Chandra making the like fine dagger of white flame to like attempt to melt the hinges.
That was cool.
So cool, and I thought it was going to work. You know, they had me, right? Because I guess you could logically look at it, and the Deadlock Trap art had not been shown yet in the story when that thing was happening. And so I guess I should have known, because they hadn't shown the Deadlock Trap art yet, that Chandra wasn't... Even though there were multiple times where Nissa described Chandra as going up to the glass, yelling, and pounding on it, which is what you see in Deadlock Trap. So I just assumed that they would like either show it later or they wouldn't show it at all because it was the promo art for the actual story itself. So when you click on it, you see it, so you don't have to see it in the video. But of course it was going to be in there because it's a story spotlight card. So
because it's incredible.
Well, yeah, but of course I should have known that it would be there regardless, and it was.
But the point is, the story was so romantic for you that you got swept up.
Oh, I was invested.
That the certain aspects of things that you should have expected to see and expected to know, you didn't necessarily know because you were just sitting there going,
but that's why there's two of us, right? Because I can be the one to be like, oh my god, it was amazing, and look at how all these things tied together, and Amy could be like, it was good, but, you know, of course I saw it coming a mile away. Yeah.
I love it. I'm so optimistic. And it can be like okay. Yep, no, I get it.
But I will ask you, because
I'm the pessimist of the two of us.
Well, but that's why I want to ask. I did not find it corny, the friendship stuff. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so like I said, It's very sort of middle school.
Right. And
middle school recess yard.
And like I said, I can see how other people would. For me, it worked. Right.
I'm not saying it didn't work.
The thing that I think back to is, the old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Cartoon show, if you guys watched that, the original, the first season, where they were like, oh, with my friends by my side, I can do anything. And it was like the corniest thing in the world. It was like, by the power of friendship, I will draw the exact right card I need. And it was like, ugh, like that's nasty.
Sounds really stupid.
Oh, it was awful. It was a great. I still watched the whole thing, but regardless, I'm a geek, and that's why we're here. But but yeah, it was like just that whole concept of like.
And how old were you when you were watching that?
Should we talk about this? I don't want to talk about that. No, I don't know. Whenever the show came out, that's how old I was.
But that speaks to what I just said. Where when I was in middle school, I was watching Daria, and when he was in middle school, or maybe middle, I don't know.
You're dating yourself. We're dating ourselves. But anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, we're old. It's fine. At least compared to some of our viewers, I assume that we are old.
Yes.
I'm sure, some people in their 60s are like, you're not old, shut up. So that's fine. But yeah, guys, if you are new to JAR, you might not know, Amy is the one, not that I don't, but Amy is very adamant about the fact that you should go read these stories before you come here. Now, I'll
know.
But if you come here for the review to see if it's worth it, I guess maybe in the beginning we'll do something where we're like, yes, it's good, go read it, and then come back here. Like this story was insane. And
we can tell from the looks on our faces pretty quickly into the video if it was a crummy story.
Yeah, and I genuinely, I thought about it, and again, because it was romanticized, I don't have a negative, really.
Okay.
I think that, you know what, I will say, if I have to find something, I will say that they talk about Liliana in this one. Last week I was like, where'd Liliana go? Chandra and Ovia and Nissa all go to see, Yahenni. Yahenni. They go to see Yahenni, the Etherborn, but Liliana's not with them, even though the last time they were all, like, we saw them, they were all together, although there's been a lot of inconsistencies in this story in terms of where people are at any given time, because there was the whole Chandra and Liliana running after Tezzeret to find Pia, and then when they get there, that's the end of that story. In the next story, hey, Nissa and Dovin Baan are also there, which we didn't tell you. Right. And then the next story, hey, Liliana's gone.
Well, they told us that they were coming. And then they time-lapsed to when they had already arrived.
But that was that was in the next story. In the previous story where they were in front of Pia, they were like, it was just them. Like that, you knew that Chandra was there, Liliana was there, and Tezzeret and Pia were there. No one else was mentioned. In the next story, it was like, oh, Nissa and Dovin Baan are also here. Why? Like, obviously we knew they were going to be on the plane, yes, but we didn't know that they were there.
Because they had already explained why they were going.
We knew why they were going.
They didn't want to spend time on stuff they didn't need, because they always are strapped for time in getting in the important story.
I guess. And that's fine. I'm just saying, in terms of the story, there's a lot of inconsistencies with people appearing and disappearing.
That I agree with.
Like, out of nowhere. And it's like, how did that happen? So, I will say, that's not really a negative for this story, because what they did was they attempted to explain it away in this story, where they were like, well, Liliana's following another lead. What do you mean she's following another lead? She didn't tell anyone this. Yeah. Now, she's Liliana, I don't expect her to tell anyone, but tell us, right? Stuff. Tell us from Nissa's perspective, like, oh, and then she left. No one said anything. It was just like, oh, these are the people that show up to this building. Well, they were with someone else. Where did Liliana go? We have no idea, and Chandra...
maybe we'll learn that in the next story.
Hopefully.
We'll see what she was doing.
Hopefully. But I want... that's fine. I'm okay with Liliana in the next story. I'd rather a Johnny in the next story, but that's totally fine. Whoever planeswalks away, like, basically we know at the end of this story, Chandra and Nissa stay in the box, in the Deadlock Trap, with Ovia, because Chandra wants to stay to make sure Ovia doesn't die alone if she's going to die, even though Ovia's like, I've lived a nice long life, That was when she mentioned...
You two guys have the power to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm old as shit.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah. If you can get out, get out. And
they were
Chandra...
just like, nah, it's cool.
Well, originally Chandra was like, Nissa, you leave. And Nissa was like, no, I don't want to. And Chandra was like, just go. And Nissa's like, I'm going to stay. And Chandra's response was, you're a good friend. And that's when Nissa was like, I want to stay here with my friend. You know, I don't understand why, but I want to. You know, and you laughed at the one point where Nissa, when Chandra first like had her outburst and was like, do you even have a mom, to Nissa? And Nissa got like really upset and kind of told a little bit of her backstory about her mother and father dying on Bala Ged, or on Zendikar in Bala Ged, because of Ulamog. Chandra like softens up a little bit, and when Chandra first said that to Nissa, Nissa was like, I feel a tightness in my chest, you know, and Chandra hugs Nissa after Nissa tells that about herself, and Nissa's response is, oddly enough, the tightness in my chest went away. And Amy's like, oddly enough? Like, what's wrong with you? Of course it's not odd. Someone lovingly hugged you and, like, comforted your sadness. And, like, you're like, this is weird.
What an odd feeling.
Yeah, someone's showing me compassion and love. Like, it's, you know, which, yeah, truly shows how messed up these guys are. But again, it comes full circle. Because at the end, Nissa's like, I want to stay with my friend.
Right,
you know?
and that also... if they're that messed up, that's what gets you to care so much about the Gatewatch members.
Oh my god, yes.
And the fact that they are the Gatewatch. They're a group of people that, you know, they're a group. And so they wanted to preserve that a little bit. Yeah. And even in death, apparently.
Well, it was really cool. And I mean...
But I mean, once you've already, like... fought off all the Eldrazi and that BS. Maybe you're just like, you know what?
Well, I also think it's very interesting, though, that
being in this vault full of poison, maybe this won't even kill me either.
We've now seen, right? We are up to this point where we have now seen Chandra and Nissa together were able to kill 2 Eldrazi Titans, combining their power. Yeah. Then we see them on Innistrad attempting to combine their power to kill Eldrazi spawn of Emrakul, or like mutated people mutated by Emrakul, and it doesn't work. And it was really because the mana of the plane, or the ley lines of the plane of Innistrad, hurt Nissa to use them, and so she couldn't absorb all of that power like she did and channel it into Chandra appropriately. Here, we are now seeing, you know, the more of the breaking down of the unstoppable nature of the Gatewatch, where, you know, they were able to take down 2 world-eating, plane-eating Titans with, you know, the 2 of them combined. Now they're on.
But when it comes to, you know, saving somebody's mom, it's like,
well, not even saving somebody's mom, breaking down a wall.
Yeah.
Like a metal wall, they can't do it because, and now, yes, it's enchanted with counterspell magic, and that's pretty good, and but still, I just think that's funny. That's just funny to me.
See, I don't think that's funny. I think that's more realistic, because you get to see the different facets of these people. They're not just godlike beings.
Yes.
You know, they like we said before, and like they said in the story, they have strengths and they have weaknesses. If they're not together, then there's not necessarily no gaps in that, you know?
Well,
like,
and even...
there's going to be weaknesses that can't be overcome because they're not all there.
But even when they are together, clearly, right?
Yes.
Like we saw that, you know, even with all 5 of them fighting Emrakul, they still needed Tameo, and even then, they still needed Emrakul to help Tameo. So, there's definitely things where we've seen them not be perfect, and that will seemingly continue.
Point,
yes, exactly.
Otherwise, you don't care about them.
And that's the continuation of the Gatewatch story. Because this is the story arc that we're going with, right? We're learning about the Gatewatch. The next set is, or the next block, I should say. The next set is Aether Revolt. But in the next block, we're in Amonkhet, and we'll see Jace and Gideon, and hopefully we'll see more interactions between the 2 of them, and growing between the 2 of them, and seemingly maybe more information about Gideon, and Jace learning about Gideon's backstory.
And Liliana, and the love triangle. angle that the three of them had.
I think Liliana doesn't know that she's in love with Gideon. Like, she just doesn't get it yet. She'll get there, but she doesn't know it yet. But yeah.
But she knows she's in love with Jace, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody knows that they're in love that they're in love with each other because you won't let them forget.
Exactly. Because they're exes.
Oh my god. So that's all I have for this story, guys. Highly, highly recommended from me. Seemingly very recommended from you, just not as much as me. Because I loved it. Again, let me know if you're in the Joe camp where it was like absolutely amazing, or whether you were with Amy where it's like, it was good, or maybe you just disliked it. And let us know maybe why you disliked it down below, because you have every right to feel however you want.
Yeah, we won't be offended.
but we want discussion. We want you to show off your...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
Yes. Hashtag Vorthos Pride. Show it off in the comments down below. As I said, we would explain it at the end. There are pre-release kits over here. There are a lot of them, as you can see. I played in 2 pre-releases myself, so that's where 2 of them are from. The other 4 were opened in some videos. 2 different videos, to be specific.
Check out those videos.
I'm sure that one of them was already linked, but I'll link the next one here. The one that I'm linking here may or may not have had an invention in it, so feel free to go watch that one. You can always definitely go watch the others as well. We will, after this video comes out, again, depending on when you're watching it, on release weekend, we will have booster boxes to be opened. We are going to have a special fiancé bundle battle between the 2 of us to see who gets the better cards, the more valuable cards. I have to try to take my win back because I have lost 2 in a row now, and that is not okay. Yeah, you're super happy. That's not okay. I'm going to try to win this time. Keep your fingers crossed for me out there, everybody. Hopefully I get a good bundle. The new...
Yeah, go ahead. Wish them all the luck.
So definitely stay tuned to that. You can subscribe down below to find out when all of those videos, as well as any other videos that we put out on this channel, come out. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of JAR from the Geek for All YouTube channel. I've been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.